Hello, my name's the Reverend Stephen Pecco with Trinity Episcopal Church in beautiful Apalachicola, Florida. And this is my sermon for Sunday, September 24th, 2023. We live in a society, a country that demands equality. Now, in this country, there's a bedrock of justice around equality among its citizens, where people are able to live life, enjoy liberty, pursue happiness. And if you hold those tenets in one hand and the way the world really works in the other, you actually see that most of the time one hand is carrying a far greater weight than the other, and they do not come together often enough. We strive for equality and the principles of brotherhood and sisterhood, but we live in a world full of people just trying to get by, get some, get more of what we crave or what we need. And religion attempts to unite these two with a common approach that is anchored in kindness to others. All the major world religions share a common theme: do to others as you would have done to you. But what happens when we're doing all that God has asked us to do? When we sacrifice and toil, attend church, read the Bible, give of ourselves, and begin to question why others who don't do those things reap the exact same reward. Why is the guy who led the worst life imaginable able to ask to be baptized on his deathbed, die moments later, and receive eternal life? Why should a family that mismanages their money get help? Why should students get loans we know they're not going to pay back? Why should banks that are too big to fail get a bailout? It isn't fair. Jesus knows what we are thinking here. He speaks of this tension in that parable of the laborers in the vineyard. It smacks of double standards, hypocrisy, inequality. To work in the field from dawn to dusk for the same pay as the one who shows up at sundown? What was he doing all day? This parable is not unlike the parable of the lost sheep, where the shepherd leaves the 99 to go look for the lost one. Or the parable of the prodigal son, where the older son toils away for years while the younger son hangs out in Vegas, blowing his share of the inheritance. In this gospel passage from today, Jesus pushes us to examine our motives behind what we see, what we view as equal or just. In the modern lingo, it's called checking your privilege. Most people can identify with the laborer working all day, not the dude who shows up when all the work's done. Or in the parables of the sheep and the prodigal son, we can identify with the sheep that hangs out by the shepherd, not necessarily the sheep who found an enticing patch of land off to the side. Or recognize ourselves as the older brother who tends the family land, while the younger brother is out digging for pay dirt. So if you identify with that person feeling wronged, let me ask you something. And pause and think about this. Be honest with yourself. If you knew that the pay would have been the same, if you knew someone would facilitate a search and rescue mission and find you, if you knew your family would take you back and throw a party for you, would it have changed what you initially decided to do? These parables are meant to upset us. They are meant to question our motives. And I have a difficult time with thinking why we get so upset about these parables. It has to be something more than equitable treatment. I mean, do we think we've wasted our time following the rules? That we labor over something where someone else doesn't see the value in it? Well, let me offer another perspective. Consider what it's like to be the last-minute laborer, to be the lost sheep, to be the son that spent his inheritance. Consider what it's like to be the person struggling to get their life right after poor decisions built on ill advice. After being born into a body or with a skin color that only gets you so far in life. Of getting into a cycle of depression, addiction, financial difficulty from where there seems no way out. And then someone comes and offers you hope in the form of a job with living wages. The searchlight of the shepherd finds you lost, alone, and shivering. The parent that quickens their pace down the driveway and runs as they realize it's their child who has come home. What is it like to be that person who suddenly out of nowhere feels the light of hope flooding their life? The laborers, who were already few anyway, have one more. They're one stronger because the foreman cared enough to continue searching even as the day drew to a close. The herd is now complete because the shepherd cared enough to not give up until every single sheep was found. And the family is together again because the father threw aside his ideas of justice to embrace the son who threw it all away. We can be glad to worship a God that pushes aside our ideas of equality and fairness and ushers in one all his own. One that's built on grace, one that's built on love, one that's built on forgiveness, one that is built on patience, one that is about building up the kingdom, not tearing it down, where everyone's present and accounted for.